Last week, our school board here in Nashville decided to instate a universal mask mandate for all students and all staff and anyone else who sets foot inside the building. On Monday, the board outlined the punishments that will be meted out to any child who dares to show his bare face on school grounds. Actually, there are many other offenses a student might commit beyond the indecent exposure of his nose and mouth. As the Tennessean reports, the offenses include, quote, refusing to wear a mask or maintain social distancing, leaving a designated area, or intentionally exchanging bodily fluids such as coughing or sneezing are considered violations of the district's protocols. Coughing and sneezing now count as misconduct. I'm sorry, not coughing and sneezing, only intentional coughing and sneezing. Intentional coughing and sneezing in the first degree with malice aforethought. That's what we're really worried about, How do you distinguish between intentional coughing and sneezing and accidental coughing and sneezing? These details are not provided, which means that it'll be up to the schools to decide whether any particular incident of coughing qualifies as an infraction or not. And if it is an offense, the offender better not make a habit of it because the consequences can be quite dire. More from the Tennessean. It says, students who violate the district's protocols could face discipline, including a student-teacher conference for the first offense. Let's stop there for a second. I'm trying to imagine a student-teacher conference where the sitting down talking about a cough. How long is that conversation going to be? And then second offense is a parent-teacher conference. So now the parents are going to sit down and you have the student there and everyone's sitting down very solemnly. And the teacher says, I need to talk to you because your son coughed in class. And we're pretty sure it was on purpose. But if this continues, if there is a third offense, then suspension or expulsion may be next, as outlined by the district's student handbook upon further incidents. Now, will we reach a point where a serial cougher might actually be expelled? Yes, we can count on it. Because a certain madness has gripped hold of a large portion of the country, and there is no ceiling to this craziness. Or perhaps I should say, there's no basement, no floor. We're going to keep plunging because fearful people are capable of just about anything. And I witnessed this myself last night as I attended the Metro Nashville School Board meeting to lend my support to the sane parents who don't want to muzzle their kids for 8 hours a day, and also to make my own voice heard. Now, I should acknowledge at the outset that, yes, I homeschool my kids. They aren't setting foot inside a public school, especially not after what I witnessed last night. But my money attends public schools in this town. I pay for them. And so the school's policies are very much my business. Also, I care about the mistreatment of children, even if they are not my own. Imagine that. That's why I talk about issues like abortion and the trans indoctrination of kids and so on. My kids aren't going to be subjected to any of that either. And yet I still speak because these kids who are subjected to it can't speak for themselves and need all the advocates they can get. Now, I've nonetheless been criticized for daring to speak at the school board when my kids don't attend, but I've got news for you. This wasn't the last time. I kind of enjoyed it. So they're going to be hearing from me again, and I can tell you that. And next time, maybe I'll bring 300 or 400 friends along with me. The public school system is a government institution, and I am a taxpayer, which means I get to make my voice heard, and I will, repeatedly and loudly. And I certainly won't put my kids in the middle of this lunacy just so that I can have the right to do so. Also, note something else. Many of the loudest voices in the country calling for kids to be masked in public school certainly do not send their kids to public school. Many of them don't even have kids. Many of the loudest voices in the country calling for masks in general don't wear them themselves, as we've seen. If they can get involved and have a say, so can I. And so can you. Now, with that out of the way, back to the school board meeting. Yesterday was, in fact, a big day for school boards in the greater Nashville area. South of here in Williamson County, there was a huge turnout of largely anti-mask mandate people, many of them rallying outside in addition to the hundreds of people inside. Many spoke out against the mandates there, including Clay Travis. He was there. Based on what I saw on social media and the news reports, it seems that it was a pretty inspiring turnout as sanity outweighed insanity in Williamson County. That is, sanity outweighed insanity among the people, just not on the school board itself, unfortunately, which still voted 7-3 to mandate the masks anyway. But that shouldn't be the end of the discussion. The pressure should stay on these people for as long as the masks are on the kids. Now, at our meeting, the scene was a little bit different. The board had already instated the mask mandate before the public meeting yesterday. They met last week and instated it, and then they had the meeting. A sizable group of people showed up to represent the pro-freedom, pro-sanity side, but this is downtown Nashville, which means we had a large group of pro-mask mandate parents and teachers who were there in attendance. And there were other markers too, other signifiers showing what we were up against. Like, for example, the rainbow flags decorating the boardroom and even adorning the uniforms of the security guards. Don't worry, though. They did have the latest and most inclusive and also ugliest rainbow flag, prominently displaying their special support for the trans community. Now, the rainbow flag is, of course, a leftist religious icon and has no place in any school building or government building of any kind. Separation of church and state. Isn't that what we're always told? But that's a problem we'll have to tackle another day. And we will, by the way. The public comments began with a whole series of pro-mask mandate parents. Many of these people were, I can tell you, hysterical, completely hysterical. Listening to these parents defending the mask mandate, many of them tearfully thanking the school board for imposing it. Thank you for saving my kids, with tears in their eyes. I'm not exaggerating. And watching this, what jumped out at me, of course, was the fear. I mean, they were sometimes literally trembling in terror, deathly afraid that their children would die from a virus that has killed 0.008% of the 42 million children it has infected. A mortality rate so low that it simply is not rational to worry about it. I tried to make that point when it was my time to speak. We'll play some of that for you now. And by the way, the city has not posted the video of the meeting yet, so we had to make do with the cell phone video my producer Sean took. The audio isn't the best, but bear with us, and here it is.
You and the school board have decided that our kids should go to school all day, every day, wearing muzzles like rabid dogs. I have listened to your arguments, and I've noticed that they're missing a few things, namely evidence, data, science, common sense, and basic human decency. You presented no facts at all, so let me do that now. Here they are. COVID poses almost no risk to our kids at all. 4.2 million children have tested positive for COVID. A total of 0.008% of them have died. What about the flu? The CDC estimates that 480 kids died from the flu in the 2018-2019 season. That's more than have died from COVID in a year and a half. Now, did anyone on this board suggest at any point that year that kids wear masks? Did anyone in this room suggest that at any point anyone wear masks for flu, which again is more dangerous to kids than COVID? That's a fact. Now, do you know what it's called when you force your children to wear masks for fear of a virus that poses almost no threat to them? It's called child abuse. You want to look up a disease, look up Munchausen by proxy, because that's what this is. Now, do any of you know what sort of psychological damage we do to children by forcing them to cover their faces, teaching them that the air is toxic, that everyone around them is sick, depriving them of the ability to see each other's faces? Do you know what kind of damage that does? Have you thought about it? Have you wondered about the health effects of forcing kids to breathe through sweat and spit and dirt-soaked rags every single day? Are you sure that there are no health risks? Do you know what the effect is on children developmentally if they're not able to read each other's facial cues? What about learning to read and they can't see the teacher enunciating the words? What does it do to a child's developing immune system if he has to wear a mask all day, every day? You're satisfied to place this burden on children anyway. And why? It's not to keep them safe. It's not to keep the adults safe. They can all get vaccinated if they want. No, you do it to make yourselves feel better and to protect yourselves politically. The child's mask is a symbolic security blanket for you, not them. It's a disgrace and you should all be ashamed. Thank you for your time.
You know, that guy raises some good points. And pretty good looking guy too, if I do say so myself. Hit it right there at the buzzer. And that was the main thing I was the most proud of. They give you 3 minutes and they're pretty strict about it. So right at the buzzer. That's how you do it, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the point about the flu has been made many times, but we should keep making it. And I wasn't the only person, by the way, in the crowd there to bring up this issue of the flu. Because perhaps more than any other point, it reveals how completely irrational our approach to COVID has been. It's not that there was less masking during flu seasons in the past, or even that people called for masking but never succeeded in getting the policies put in place until COVID. No, that's not what happened. Nobody ever considered it. It was not an option on the table. Nobody ever brought it up. The people who are now saying, you're going to kill my child if you don't wear a mask. None of them, not one, ever said anything during flu season. And that's because although the flu is a greater danger to kids, there was never any campaign to make us afraid of it. We were all concerned about the flu, cautious about it to a certain extent. We obviously didn't want to get the flu, or we certainly didn't want our kids to get it. When I got a terrible case of the flu about a year and a half ago, which now on second thought I think was probably COVID, but at the time we thought it was the flu, and we had a newborn in the house, and it was and I was very, very sick for about 3 or 4 days, and I quarantined myself in a room and basically didn't leave it because I especially didn't want the baby to get the flu because that could be really fatal. The point is, I didn't need anyone to tell me that. I didn't need to look at any guidance from the CDC. I didn't need a year and a half of lecturing. I just knew to do that because I'm a rational person and I don't want my kids to get sick. But even though we were concerned about the flu, we didn't want our kids to get it, we maintained a proper perspective about it and we continued living our lives. Many people, as I witnessed myself firsthand last night, have lost their ability to do that with COVID. Completely lost it. I mean, lost it in like every sense of the word. I'm telling you, one parent after another losing it. Barely able to speak because they're so afraid. Overwhelmed by their own fear. Fear is the pandemic now. It is the virus. And notice something. It's the average citizen. It's the parent of the school child who trembles in fear, who literally cries to the school board that she's afraid her child will die. The people putting these policies in place, the powers that be, they're not trembling. That's because they're not afraid. They know better. But they want you to be afraid because your fear is the greatest gift to them. Your fear makes you easy to control, to manipulate, to persuade of anything. A fearful populace is a subjugated populace. Fearful people become willful slaves. Roosevelt might have been onto something after all. Sounds like a cliche now, but it's true. There's nothing to fear but fear itself. And that has never been more true than it is today. Listen, hit that subscribe button right now. Do it right now. I thank you for your compliance. It is somewhat appreciated.